So let's talk about the domain restriction for a rational expression. So here's my rational expression. What's a rational expression? It's a big fraction. And I know from the definition that Q cannot be 0. So I can't have a 0 in the denominator, okay? And you know that from fractions. If you have a 0 in the denominator, it's undefined. So you're going to see some questions that are going to ask you, what makes this undefined? Another way they're going to ask it is they're going to say, what is the restriction on the domain? So the domain it's really just what values can you plug in for x. And normally your domain is everything. You can plug in anything you want, right? You want to plug in a 2? Yeah, plug in a 2. You want to plug in a 7? Yeah, plug in a 7. But in this case, there are some numbers that I cannot plug in because if I do, I'll get a 0 in the denominator. So let me show you how to find this. All right, let's make some space. What is the domain? Normally the domain is all real numbers. But in this case, there is something that we have that will give us a 0 in the denominator. So what you need to do, in this case, don't even look at the numerator. I'm not worried about the numerator. I'm only looking at the denominator. The denominator is x squared minus 25, and that cannot be 0. So if you set it not equal to 0, this is like solving a rational equation, solving a quadratic equation. What's the first step in solving a quadratic equation? I'll give you a hint. Set it equal to 0. Done. Second step in solving a quadratic equation. Factor completely. When I factor the difference of two squares, I'm going to get x plus 5, x minus 5. And the next step is to set all of your factors equal to 0. X plus 5 equals 0. X minus 5 equals 0. And then solve. So for this equation, I subtract 5 on both sides. I will see that x equals negative 5. And here, if I add 5 to both sides, I will see that x equals 5. These two numbers right here, these are the two numbers that if I plug into the original equation will give me a 0 in the denominator. These are the two numbers that I cannot plug in because if I get a 0 in the denominator, it's undefined. I will be able to plug in any other number in the world into this rational expression except for negative 5 and positive 5. So the restriction on the domain is x cannot be negative 5, x cannot be positive 5. The way that you will probably see it, it's going to look like this. It's going to say x such that x is a real number, but x cannot be, and you fill it in. What can x not be? It can't be 5, and it can't be negative 5.